Welcome to Bible Stories for Everyone, where God's Word comes to life. Today, we bring you a story of courage, faith, and a small shepherd boy who took down a mighty giant. So sit back, relax, and let the Word come to life.
David and Goliath. A long time ago, in the land of Israel, there was a great war. Two armies stood on opposite hills, facing each other across a valley. On one side stood the Philistines, a fierce and powerful enemy. On the other side stood the Israelites, the people of God. Every day, tension filled the air, but no battle began. Why? Because the Philistines had a terrifying champion, a giant named Goliath. Goliath wasn't just tall, he was enormous. He stood over 9 feet tall, taller than two men standing on each other's shoulders. His armor was made of bronze and weighed more than a grown man. He carried a spear so big, the tip alone weighed as much as a bowling ball. Every morning, Goliath stomped into the valley, banged his armor, and shouted to the Israelites, "Why are you even lining up to fight? Send one man. If he can fight me and win, we will become your servants. But if I defeat him, you will be ours." And every morning the Israelite soldiers quaked in fear. Not one dared to face him. Not one, until a boy named David came along. David was not a soldier. He was a young shepherd from Bethlehem. His 3 oldest brothers were in the army, and David was sent by his father Jesse to bring them food and check on them. David arrived just as Goliath came out to give his daily challenge. David heard the giant's loud, mocking voice and saw the fear on the faces of the soldiers. He was shocked. "Who is this man who dares to defy the army of the living God?" David asked. The soldiers only shook their heads. "That's Goliath. He's too strong, too big. No one can defeat him." But David's heart burned with courage. He believed something no one else remembered. God is bigger than any giant. When King Saul heard what David was saying, he sent for him. The king was surprised to see a young boy standing before him. "You can't fight Goliath," Saul said. "You're only a boy, and he has been a warrior all his life." But David stood firm. "Your Majesty, I fought lions and bears while taking care of my father's sheep. When they attacked, I chased them down and rescued the lambs. God protected me then, and he will protect me now from this Philistine." King Saul looked into David's eyes. There was no fear, only faith. So the king said, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." He gave David his own royal armor to wear, helmet, coat, and sword. But David couldn't move. The armor was too big and too heavy. He took it off. Instead, David picked up his shepherd's staff and then went to a nearby stream. He knelt and searched carefully until he found 5 smooth stones. He placed them in his pouch, held his sling in his hand, and began walking toward the battlefield. The Israelites held their breath. The Philistines burst out laughing. And Goliath? Goliath was insulted. He squinted at the boy walking toward him. No armor, no sword, just a stick, a sling, and a pouch. "What is this?" Goliath roared. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? Come here, boy, and I'll feed your flesh to the birds." But David didn't stop. He stood tall, looked straight at the giant, and said boldly, "You come to me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel. Today, he will hand you over to me. I will strike you down, and the whole world will know there is a God in Israel." The valley fell silent. Then, Goliath moved forward. David ran toward him. He reached into his pouch, pulled out a stone, placed it in his sling, and began to swing it. Around and around and around, faster and faster. Whoosh! The stone flew through the air. Smack! It struck Goliath right in the center of his forehead. The giant froze. Then he stumbled, staggered, and crashed. He fell face down on the ground. The Philistines were stunned. Their mighty warrior was dead. They turned and ran. The Israelites shouted in triumph and chased them all the way back to their land. David had won. A young shepherd with no sword, no shield, and no army of his own just faith. That day, God's people were saved not by power or size, but by a boy who trusted that God is always stronger than any giant. The lesson to learn from this magnificent tale is that David was small, but his faith was big. He didn't let fear stop him. He didn't try to be like everyone else. He used what God had already given him: his courage, his sling, and his trust in the Lord. So whenever we face a giant fear, trouble, sadness, or even someone unkind, we can remember this. With God on our side, no giant is too big to fall.